reshaping ecosystems. Welcome to Blue Forum at Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week.
Your Highnesses, Excellencies, distinguished guests, and friends, good morning, Sabah al-Hay, and welcome to the Blue Forum. My name is Zhao Chenchen. I'm a tech reporter with China Global Television Network, and it's a great honor for me to be here and serve as the master for today's program. Here at Blue Forum, we bring together leaders from government, international organizations, business, finance, and civil society to explore how integrated solutions across energy, cities, and technology can deliver real impact, especially across the global south. Now, over the next few hours, we will hear perspectives on multilateral cooperation, technological innovation, sustainable finance, and societal engagement, all critical pillars for building a more resilient planet. Now, to officially open today's forum, let me first invite Mr. William Wong, the Chief Representative for the Middle East and Africa at the Sino-International Entrepreneurs Federation, to deliver the opening welcome remarks. Please join me in welcome Mr. William Wong.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, good morning. On behalf of Sino-International Entrepreneurs Federation, SIEF, it is my distinct honor to welcome you to the inaugural Blue Forum, co-hosted with Masdar during the 2026 Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. We convene today at a defining moment for our planet, a moment when the health of our oceans, coasts, and freshwater systems is no longer a sectorial concern, but a central determinant of global prosperity, stability, and resilience. Founded in 2008 by the Right Honorable Gordon Brown, Jean-Pierre Raffarin, the Honorable John Howard, and His Excellency Long Yong-tu, SIEF is a global non-profit and non-partisan organization, incorporated in Zurich and headquartered in Beijing at the Prince Palace. SIEF is a trusted platform that connects leaders across governments, industries, and regions, enabling dialogue where it matters most. Over the past decades, SIEF has worked along public and private sector leaders to shape strategy, inform policy, and enable delivery. Our not-for-profit nature allows us to operate in complex and sensitive environments, always guided by impact over profit. Our nonpartisan mandate enables us to bring global expertise to leaders committed to translating ambition into tangible outcomes for their people. At Blue Forum, shaped over a year of strategic preparation, is not merely a convening, it's a call to action. It brings together global decision makers to address the world's most urgent water and ocean challenges and to develop the solutions ahead of the upcoming UN Water Conference. At its core is a shared vision of a unified blue economy, with the capital blue, one that recognizes freshwater, coastal, and marine systems as a single interconnected lifeline. In this vision, sustainable investment is not only an economic opportunity, but also a moral responsibility. Across today's sessions, you will see leadership that transcends borders, partnerships that bridge sectors, and innovations that expand the boundaries of what is possible. From mobilizing capital and scaling breakthrough technologies to strengthening coastal resilience and engaging societies in water stewardship, every discussion is designed to advance economic growth, climate resilience, and resource security together. The stakes could not be higher. By 2030, our collective ambition is to mobilize $100 billion in water and ocean investment. It is an ambitious target, but an actionable one. The Blue Forum exists to ensure that connections become commitments, commitments become partnerships, and partnerships deliver measurable impact for the people worldwide. On behalf of SIEF, I extend my warmest welcome to each of you. I encourage you to engage boldly, think systematically, and collaborate generously. Let's chart a true blue path forward, one where innovation, investment, and leadership converge to safeguard the lifeblood of our planet, water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. And I hope we all have a better understanding of SIEF. And coming next, we're honored to invite Her Excellency Dr. Amna bint Abdullah Al Dahak Al Shamsi, the Minister of Climate Change and the Environment of the United Arab Emirates, to deliver opening remarks. Please welcome.
Your Excellency, Patrick Hermani, President of the Republic of Seychelles, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today to address a very critical issue that affects every one of us on a daily basis. Our oceans and water resources are crucial to humankind's survival. Yet, still 2.2 billion people worldwide, 1 in 4 are denied access to safe, clean water. And last week, UN Water launched its campaign for World Water Day. Where water flows, equality grows. And I cannot think of a more poignant summary of the power of water worldwide. In the UAE, a desert nation, water security is never out of our minds. The UAE Water Security Strategy 2036 guides our efforts to implement integrated water resources management, and we aim to reduce total demand for water resources by 21%, substantially increase water use efficiency across all sectors. And our pioneering agri-tech projects demonstrate a future in which minimal water resources will be needed to produce fresh produce and feed a nation. AI, as well, is playing a major role in our progress in decarbonization. Desalination is a key pillar of our national strategy. And Abu Dhabi's Al-Tawila RO plant is set to become the world's largest reverse osmosis facility when fully operational. Its work directly supports our goal to produce 90% of Abu Dhabi's desalinated water through RO technology by 2030. And our national Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative also continues to grow in its impact and reach, and we are continuously raising awareness and accelerating innovation, fostering collaboration for a water-resilient future. And we cannot talk about collaboration without also mentioning the UN Water Conference 2026, which the UAE will host in collaboration with Senegal by December this year. And we look forward by the end of this month, to the meeting in Dakar, which will also further this conversation and make sure that we continue and progress in the 6 interactive dialogues set for this conference to ensure that we collaboratively create a more prosperous future. Today, we must embrace the opportunity to work together to strengthen global water security and the benefits it brings. We must not divide our focus, our investments, and strategies across different water. Water is water at the end of the day, whether it is for sanitation, resource security, climate adaptation, and economic growth. Water holds the key to our future and to our growth and to our prosperity. An interconnected blue economy is the route to water equality. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, I look forward to a very productive and positive session with all of you here today. Thank you to Sino-International Entrepreneurs Federation and Masdar for their valuable partnership and for bringing us here today for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that inspiring message and for your continued effort on climate and environmental action. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now come to a highlight of today's program. We now have the privilege of hearing from the President of Seychelles. So please join me in welcome His Excellency, Mr. Patrick Hermany, the President of Seychelles, to deliver a keynote address.
Distinguished delegates, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this is my first attendance of the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, and I am honored to address you today at the Blue Forum. I thank the government of the United Arab Emirates for the invitation to share Seychelles' perspective at this important gathering. As a small island developing state, Seychelles stands on the front line of climate change. Yet, we also choose to stand at the forefront of solutions. We meet at a time when climate pressures are intensifying and economic uncertainty is increasing. In this context, it is becoming increasingly clear that water has become one of the world's most critical natural resources. Freshwater, coastal and ocean systems underpin food security, energy, trade, livelihoods, and ecosystems. Yet, for decades, they have been managed in isolation, planned, financed, and governed separately, leading to fragmented decisions, missed opportunities for integrated solutions, and ultimately reduced resilience in the face of growing climate and economic risk. The Blue Forum's ambition to mobilize $100 billion in investment across water and ocean systems by 2030 reflects the scale of transformation required if we are to build real climate and economic resilience. Water is not only an environmental issue, it is central to climate adaptation, economic stability, and human development. The Blue Forum advances a more realistic approach, one that recognizes rivers, aquifers, deltas, coastlines, ports, fisheries, and oceans as part of a single interconnected system, a continuum that runs from source to sea and back. This systems-based perspective reflects the lived reality of communities and economies, and it must be fully reflected into policy, planning, and finance. For Seychelles, a small island developing state whose territory is predominantly ocean, this perspective is not theoretical. It reflects our daily reality. Our economy, our infrastructure, our food systems, and our communities are shaped by the close interaction between land, water, and sea. Any disruption along this continuum affects the different aspects of our development. For many years, Seychelles has and continues to pursue the blue economy as an integrated national development pathway rather than as a standalone sector through the implementation of our Seychelles Blue Economy Strategic Policy Framework and Roadmap. This approach is based on a simple principle. Long-term socioeconomic resilience depends on healthy ecosystems, and environmental protection must go hand in hand with inclusive growth and viable livelihoods. This vision is embedded in our national planning framework and has guided reforms across fisheries, tourism, conservation, and ocean governance. Our experience has shown that when freshwater and marine systems are managed in isolation, resilience is weakened. When they are managed together, supported by science, sound governance, and long-term planning, they contribute to stability and sustainable development. This understanding is driving Seychelles to invest in integrated, cross-sectoral approaches that bridge land and sea. Climate change is accelerating the breakdown of our interconnected water systems. Sea levels are surging, oceans are warming, coral reefs are collapsing, freshwater security is eroding, and extreme weather is striking with alarming frequency. We have been long saying it, but we won't stop saying it. The time to act is now. Last year, Seychelles experienced one of the most severe droughts in its recent history. For an island nation surrounded by water, the drought was a stark reminder that freshwater security cannot be taken for granted. It affected households, agriculture, ecosystems, and essential services. It also highlighted how closely freshwater management is linked to coastal resilience, land use, energy systems, and climate variability. This experience reinforced an important lesson. Resilience cannot be built in silos. It is in response to these challenges that Seychelles has pursued integrated, source-to-sea approaches such as marine spatial planning, reach-to-reef programs, sustainable fisheries management, coastal protection, and water security initiatives, all centered around ecosystem-based approaches. As part of this effort, Seychelles has now legally protected more than 30% of its ocean area, exceeding global biodiversity and protected area targets. This demonstrates that ambition and leadership are possible even for small states. But protection alone is not enough. The more difficult task lies in implementation and management, where there are competing priorities. Effective management of protected areas and fisheries management plans, enforcement of regulations, scientific monitoring, investment in water infrastructure, support for coastal communities, and climate adaptation all depend on sustained and predictable financing. For countries like Seychelles, the challenge is not a lack of commitment, but the ability to secure funding at scale to deliver these priorities. This is why the Blue Forum's focus on mobilizing investment across integrated water and ocean systems is critical. The global water economy is evolving, driven by innovation, technology, and new forms of financing. The capitals need to reach countries and communities that are already demonstrating leadership and readiness to deliver. Opportunities exist across the full water and ocean spectrum, including resilient water systems, desalination, blue carbon, sustainable shipping, sustainable fisheries, ports, and climate-resilient coastal infrastructure. These are not niche areas. They represent a growing economic frontier with the potential to deliver both resilience and sustainable growth, particularly for islands and coastal states. What is needed now is alignment. Alignment between policy and finance, between planning and investment, and between global ambition and local ambition, implementation. Finance must be accessible, innovative, and responsive to real needs on the ground, particularly in vulnerable countries that have already demonstrated leadership. Innovation can play a vital role in supporting this transition. Digital tools, including artificial intelligence, can enhance climate modeling, environmental and fisheries monitoring, control and surveillance, strengthen early warning systems, and improve decision-making across interconnected water systems. Used responsibly, they can enhance efficiency and resilience. But they must complement, not replace sound policy, strong institutions, and inclusive governance. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Blue Forum offers a clear and timely reframing of the global water economy, one that recognizes freshwater, coastal, and marine systems as a single interconnected foundation for climate resilience and economic prosperity. Seychelles reaffirms its commitment to advancing a blue economy that treats water and oceans as one shared continuum of responsibility and opportunity. This commitment is being translated into action through recent reforms, including a strengthened natural resources mandate within government and the development of first Water Resources Bill, which incorporates integrated water resources management principles to support sustainable and climate-resilient water governance. We stand ready to strengthen partnerships, share lessons learned, and contribute leadership as a small island developing state and a committed advocate of this integrated approach. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the significant contributions of our partners like India, China, and especially the United Arab Emirates for ongoing projects to strengthen Seychelles' sustainability. I wish to thank our host in particular for responding to our recent severe drought with a number of desalination plants which will render the country to become more resilient against severe droughts. We value your genuine partnership. Together, let us mobilize the cooperation, innovation, and investment needed to build resilient, inclusive, and future-ready water and ocean systems, from source to sea, for the benefit of present and future generations. I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, especially for your strong commitment. Now, to reach sustainable development, we'll need efforts from all parties of the society. And for these points, will be highlighted in our sessions coming up. For now, we'll take a brief interlude for the preparations. And ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Our program will resume shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall resume our program, and welcome back to the Blue Forum. As technology becomes an essential part of our daily lives, it also sits at the heart of climate solutions. And today, we're pleased to present a landmark report jointly developed by the United Nations, APEC, and Shanghai Climate Week, titled Climate Tech in Focus, Artificial Intelligence for Sustainability. Let's first take a look at the overview of this report.
Technology is fundamental in galvanizing climate action and building a more sustainable future. Climate Tech in Focus, Artificial Intelligence for Sustainability, is the 2025 edition of the joint annual flagship research led by the United Nations and APEC affiliates, as well as Shanghai Climate Week. Presented by the Sino-International Entrepreneurs Federation, with WeCarbon as the knowledge partner. With over 120 contributors across 28 countries, including 26 heads of state and ministerial level officials. This report examines how AI transforms climate mitigation and adaptation in practice, and what it takes to translate technical capability into scalable sustainability. Moving beyond model-centric optimization, AI efficiency is a deployment design challenge, where real-world system constraints shape model scale, inference location, and optimization. Automation is reframed around responsibility, with AI roles defined into 6 distinct levels from observer to governor, keeping decision authority explicit and autonomy firmly in check. For the Global South, AI is not a technological convergence, but a development infrastructure through inclusive incubation, capacity building, and proportionate governance. AI can deliver value even in resource-constrained environments. The real progress of AI for sustainability is not only about better models, but more about trusted, deployable, and well-governed systems that deliver actual impact.
Want to explore how AI enables sustainable transformation across industries and what governments, businesses, and innovators must do next? Download the full report now by scanning the QR code.
And now we're honored to welcome our keynote speaker for this session. Please welcome His Excellency Eduardo Pedrosa, Executive Director of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, to deliver a keynote address. Please welcome.
Your Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished experts, and friends, please allow me to express my appreciation to the Sino-International Entrepreneurs Federation for the invitation to Abu Dhabi's Sustainability Week and address you all today on behalf of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC Secretariat. I would like to take the time that you have given to me today to share the lessons that we have gained in our journey to connect the blue and the green economies. The challenges before us today are not just central to the APEC region, they are a call to action. The ocean is our lifeline. It unites our economies, it sustains our trade, it secures our food, and supports the livelihoods of millions in coastal and island communities. Our shared stewardship is vital, as APEC members are responsible for over 80% of global aquaculture production and more than 65% of world capture fisheries, not to mention 40% of the global population. While sustainability has been present throughout our establishment, the most comprehensive plan we have adopted was just a few years ago in 2022, the Bangkok Goals on the Bio-Circular Green Economy. This integrated approach, where technology and innovation are used to create value, reduce waste, advance resource efficiency, and promote sustainable business models. But this model is more than a framework. It is a rallying point for innovation and collaboration. We believe that our unique characteristics and modes of operation provide a unique perspective on how to realize the green and blue economy. These are diversity. Our members are diverse. Continental-sized economies to islands, advanced and emerging economies. Dialogue. Our model is one of sharing experiences, operating around non-binding, consensus-based model. And we have deep engagement with stakeholders, which ensures that our policies and initiatives reflect real-world needs and opportunities. Underpinning all of this is that we take a whole-of-system approach, a holistic approach. We facilitate coordination and cooperation among agencies responsible for both the green and blue economies. Just last year, we convened our groups responsible for agricultural technological cooperation, agricultural biotechnology, oceans and fisheries, and our policy partnership on food security. This sharing of work helps us identify areas of common concern across different sectors, as well as the ways in which they are being addressed. It is about developing synergy and avoiding duplication. Let me now move on to our mode of operations that help make progress in spite of the evolving circumstances in which we operate. We take both a top-down and bottom-up approach. Top-down, APEC leaders set broad visions and goals. For example, APEC member economies have committed to reducing energy intensity by at least 45% by 2030 and doubling the share of modern renewables by 2030. While energy use is a key objective, as I mentioned earlier, we also have broader, more holistic goals, such as the Bangkok Goals on the Bio-Circular Green Economy. But these need to go beyond the echo chamber of policymakers. The adoption of these goals was accompanied by the APEC BCG Award, which recognizes distinguished individuals from 3 groups: women, micro and small and medium enterprises who have concretely implemented replicable approaches to advance sustainable and inclusive growth. Last year, the winners were, under the women category, a company that enables marine plastics to be scaled for high-end industrial applications. Under the youth category, a startup that converts agricultural waste into safe, biodegradable inks for children. Under the micro and SME category, a company focused on helping businesses achieve net zero goals through data-driven decarbonization and circular economy strategies. These stories inspire us and prove that sustainable growth is not only possible, but also provide examples of viable businesses. They are sustainable in both senses of the word. From the bottom up, technical experts work together to discuss issues of mutual concern and raise them up to ministers and leaders for their endorsement. For example, APEC working groups have developed non-binding guidelines on services that support the cleanup of marine debris, the first ever internationally agreed list of environmental goods, principles for achieving food security through sustainable agri-food systems, and principles for preventing and reducing food loss and waste. And all of this has been done with business and stakeholder input. But principles alone are not enough. We are committed to action. We have established dedicated funds for, amongst others, marine debris management, structural reform for sustainable growth, and digitalization for green transitions. Our fund on marine debris has supported more than 100 projects focused on strengthening ocean ecosystem conservation and resilience, promoting ocean literacy, supporting sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, encouraging low carbon and renewable ocean solutions, and leveraging technology for better solution and fisheries management. These commitments help us turn vision into reality. Looking ahead this year under China's leadership, APEC's theme is building an Asia-Pacific community to prosper together, openness, innovation, and cooperation. Through deeper cooperation, we seek to address challenges such as food security, energy security, and accessibility, and climate change. We will build on the Bangkok goals on the biocircular green economy. We are determined to continue advancing our sustainability objectives in a bold, responsive, and comprehensive manner to address the environmental challenges facing the region. In short, we need to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. There is so much more that I would like to share with you today, but I hope that I've given you a sense of APEC's work on the blue and green economies, our mode of operations, how we define priorities, and how we implement them. I thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to today's discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And your speech reminded me of your last interview with us with CGTN, where you mentioned when togetherness become more challenging in a world of increasing competition. Platforms such as APEC and Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week play a crucial role in keeping dialogue open and pushing for real change. And with that will lead us to the first panel discussion of the day, which will explore integrated climate solutions at the multilateral level and how they can deliver real-world impact. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the moderator for this panel, international journalist Ms. Rosanna Lockwood. And she will be joined by our distinguished panelists. Please welcome.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you. Please, gentlemen, take your seats, and I'm going to do an introduction to this session. We're going to be talking indeed about multilateral collaboration, how we harmonize standards, policy frameworks, and integrate things like financing across multilateral organizations to make sure that climate objectives are not being tried to achieve in silos. We see this a lot. Often solutions are emerging in isolation. So how do we get multilateral organizations to work more harmoniously to join the dots on that? Now, I am joined on stage, as you can see here, by a very esteemed panel. So if you'll allow me just a minute or two to introduce them properly so you can get the context for this conversation. Joining me immediately to my left is His Excellency Antonio Basilio, who is Director of the APEC Business Advisory Council. Now, a lot of you know APEC as the premier Asia-Pacific Economic Forum, supporting sustainable economic growth and prosperity. The APEC Business Advisory Council is the private sector arm of APEC. So Antonio speaks to us from that perspective. To his left is His Excellency Sergei Kanavsky, who is Executive Secretary of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Business Council. Now, again, many of you in this room know the important work that the SCO does as the world's largest regional organization. Well, the SCO Business Council fosters economic cooperation, trade, and investment amongst those SCO member states, bringing together business and financial leaders to promote cross-border businesses and projects across the Eurasian region. So he can speak to us from that perspective. And certainly not least, His Excellency Erik Solheim, former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations. A pleasure to see you, sir. A Norwegian diplomat and former politician, served in the Norwegian government from 2005 to 2012 as Minister of International Development and Minister of the Environment, and as Under-Secretary General of the UN and Executive Director of the UN Nations Environment Programme from 2016 to 2018. So you get the picture here. We have got these gentlemen representing huge swathes of the world, multilateral organizations, and we're going to get straight to it. Sir, Antonio Basilio, and talk to you about the APEC Business Advisory Council, because you sit in a very unique position there, bridging business leaders, heads of government. So talk to me about how that bridge can be used more deliberately so you can hardwire policy coherence.
Thank you, Rosanna, for the question, and good morning, everyone. Let me add a little more to your brief introduction about the organization I represent, ABAC, the APEC Business Advisory Council, which was created in 1995 by APEC leaders to provide advice to senior officials, ministers, and leaders on issues that impact on the growth, economic growth of the region, which the leaders have now defined as being inclusive, sustainable, and driven by innovation. So APEC itself is an informal organization. I mean, it's a formal organization, but it's not a formal trade agreement. So everything that's taken up is voluntary, non-binding, and it works on consensus. So because of the way APEC is organized, member economies are able to introduce new topics, new ideas, which in a formal setting might be difficult to undertake. So once these are refined, if they require global implementation, then they're brought to the WTO, for example. And I can cite two examples, and that's the Information Technology Agreement, which provides for zero treatment for computers, electronic items, and all that. Now, ABAC itself is made up of 3 members from each member economy, so they're appointed by the leaders. So it's important that they're appointed by the leaders, because that means their personal relationship or they know each other, which is important to subsequently to how they can hardwire policies, as you said, as you mentioned. And one good example of that is the APEC food system. APEC food system was introduced by ABAC in 1998, and then it was adopted by leaders in 1999. The approach is a whole of system approach to food security. So instead of focusing in the beginning just on market access, the food system looks at the whole agriculture value chain, agri-food value chain, from production to consumption. And it includes or focuses on private-public sector collaboration, looking at new technology to improve productivity, so smart agriculture, things like that, and also to promote sustainability, like better water management. So there's already a buy-in on the relationship between energy, between sustainability, food security, inbuilt into the food system. And ABAC, my organization's main input, is done through the policy partnership on food security. And that's the one that meets regularly and sends their suggestions or conveys their proposals to ministers and to the leaders.
So it's having the systems in place and the appointments process in place to ensure that you have those types of partnerships happening all along the chain. Your Excellency, Mr. Kanafsky, I'm going to come to you on, we've got this new SCO Development Bank coming online. Talk to me about how that can really coordinate with other institutions, thinking about things like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the New Development Bank, which a lot of people in this room will be familiar with, and of course domestic investors. Talk to us about how those types of financing institutions can work together to finance projects.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Thank you for all people here, and thank you for organization countries to give me opportunity to speak this on a forum. Of course, you know, the decision about the Bank of Development was deleted in Taizing summit. It's a very important summit, very good opportunity to say that there was make a very big historically program in that summit. And now we are just on the half of our way. It's not so fast, it's not so easy to establish one of the new financial system. Of course, we need some financial systems, and we use already some of that. We have a very good relationship with this bank, you said, and of course we organize our own, some kind of low-level groups of bank to support projects, support directly projects. And this is our task, this is our mode. So Business Council is one of the official structure in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization who organized the privilege project on the base of private business. We, of course, have a very good cooperation with the government system, but government, you know, is sometimes moving not so fast. We need fast money for long term. So this is why we just announced that we establish a new financial system, but not yet, unfortunately, not yet. But we are looking fast, moving fast, and we think that maybe next year it should be established as well.
Fast money for long term.
Fast money for long term.
Working across governments and private sector financing institutions.
Yes, yes. I'm talking about some kind of venture projects.
Yeah, yeah. I'll come back to you and talk more about some of the projects shortly. I want to get to His Excellency Mr. Solheim, because you speak from the background, obviously, of having been with the United Nations for a long time, and you would have seen during that time that, of course, we've got multiple regional climate agendas all moving at once, which is a good thing to see. But how do we unify that? Do you think we're getting better at aligning global efforts when it comes to climate projects, or are we still working in silos?
Look, the answer to your question is, of course, that we need a stronger United Nations, and we need all the different initiatives which you hear about here, the Shanghai Cooperation, the APEC, and so many others. But the United Nations is in its deepest crisis ever, as the weakest leadership ever, but I'm happy to come back to that. But let me focus on where I see the action, the positive way forward. Because there have been two huge shifts in the world in the last decades. I mean, I was first time in the climate conference in Bali in 2007. Since then, there are two massive shifts. One is a shift from a Europe-led world on the environment to an Asia-led world. 10 years ago, the European Union was by far the most advanced place for any green solution? Well, now China is by far the most advanced place for any green solution. And India is coming also very, very fast. So we have moved from a Europe or Western-centered world to an Asian-centered world. And the other is diplomacy don't matter that much any longer. It's all about business. The great action is not in the diplomatic conferences. I was here in Dubai, I'm not here, but in Dubai 2 years ago to the climate talks. It matters, but the action is in business. And let me give you 2 practical examples from the blue economy, bringing water into the picture. The Kobochi Desert is just nearby Beijing. Back in the days, huge sand and dust storms were hitting Beijing from Kobochi, until a young entrepreneur starting seeing the desert as a business opportunity, not a threat. Planting trees, big scale, and then developing renewable energies like solar in the desert, planting all the plants which can thrive in very, very dry circumstances, like, say, Chinese traditional medicines, and developing ecotourism. Well, I took my son there, and he was amazed by going in the desert by small cars. So the transformation came when you didn't see the desert as a threat, but a business opportunity. And I'm happy to say Kobochi is the most advanced development of a desert anywhere in the world, setting an example for what everyone else can do all over the planet. Business and ecology, one process. Another example, I was just in the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. In Andhra Pradesh, a company called Greenco has now developed the largest integrated solar, wind, and hydropower as pumped storage facility in the world. It works like this. In daytime, Andhra Pradesh is blessed with the sun. They use the sun to pump up the water from the lower to the higher reservoir. They release the water at night, and then you get 24 hours of energy powered by solar and wind, and with the pump storage as a battery, working throughout, and it's the largest in the world. There is nothing like this in Europe. There's nothing like that in the United States of America. Only China has anything similar to the Andhra Pradesh facility. It's 6.5 gigawatt. How much is that? Well, one comparison is that it's more than the entire grid in Nigeria, which is the largest nation in Africa, is double the entire hydropower capacity of Nepal, which is a massive hydropower nation. So this is large. And it comes from one concept. Green is gold. Going green can create prosperity. There is no longer a choice between ecology and economy. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that's the way forward. For the first time in human history, there is a way to prosperity, which is green.
What I'm hearing there, business first, allow business to lead, like you're saying, and then everyone else can catch up, and government can obviously be on board, but if you want to see that kind of progress, you've got to allow innovation to happen, which you're seeing more, you're saying, through Asia, through the Middle East and onwards, less so in the West.
I mean, that's what the business hub is all about. I saw all the green companies from all over the world here because they want to exhibit what they can provide. And there is no doubt solar energy will be the dominant energy in the 21st century, absolutely no doubt. And we see all the amazing innovations now happening. In India now, solar energy with battery storage is cheaper than coal. Solar is the cheapest energy anywhere in the world. So solar is not a business opportunity, not just an environment good thing to do.
I can say that in that situation, please remember that business must be supported by government.
Absolutely, the government need to make the framework and the vision and the standards, for sure.
Support it in, give money, give prosperity, give some kind of new energy of business. It's necessary to support business, and it's the main idea about that.
Absolutely, but you don't really need international conferences. The Chinese government can set the rules for China. Prime Minister Narendra Modi set the rules for India, and then you make the framework which make business thrive. And of course, exactly the same will be the case in
We're speaking
UAE.
about some specialization. So, for example, in Shanghai Cooperation Organization, we have a lot of countries, and now Arabic Middle East countries there as a partner working with so countries, but they have their own specialties, and China own specialties. So we need to cooperate, need to understand each other, and develop regional cooperation for the high level.
And do you think that's possible?
Yes, I think it's possible. We have such good institute for that. Inside the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, we have Business Council, we have Regional Forum, we have multinational bank organization as well. But it's not enough.
There can always be more. And I'm taking your point about government creating the environment for businesses to be able to lead like that.
Yes.
I will come back to you. I want to bring in His Excellency Mr. Basilio on that because, you know, you've got Apex private sector, we're talking about for development banks, sovereign wealth funds, all of them active in these types of climate solutions, but often separately. Talk to us about what you're doing at the APEC Business Advisory Council to make sure they're working together to finance projects.
Okay, well, here you face several different challenges. One, of course, is how to structure the project because it incorporates the three elements that you mentioned, digital technology, energy security, and food security, which is not easy. Second, it's cross-border, so it involves other countries as well with different policies, regulations, and favorite technology, for example. So that makes also fair access benefits a little trickier, and also the choice of technology. And the third is making to bring in the sovereign wealth fund and private sector investment. You have to make the projects bankable. So if I can give an example, in the case of APEC, and again, I refer to the APEC food system, and the subsequent roadmap that was drawn up in 2022, in which each individual countries or collectively undertake certain actions to achieve food security. So it's important that there be government buy-in. The fact that they signed on to the roadmap means that there's already buy-in from governments, but you probably need to emphasize this by saying that projects in the future involving food security must also incorporate sustainability issues like energy, etc. Also, with regards to avoiding technology lockup, the APEC food system recognizes that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. So they recognize that each economy, each country have their own technology, and means to achieve food security, including the use of traditional methods of farming. So it's not prescriptive, but it allows individual economies to or countries. In APEC, we use economies because of certain conventions. So in case people don't understand why I keep mentioning economies instead of countries. So if you have, if for example, we say this demonstration project is on rice production, that will involve the use of solar or wind energy to power irrigation pumps, and also hydrogen production, for example, through electrolysis of water, also becomes part of that integrated process. And because it's a single project pipeline, it becomes more attractive to the private sector. And the fact that you have MDBs like AIIB or ADB investing in the project, in the initial stage, it will be probably to induce policy reforms within government. So that makes the project become more attractive because you create the kind of enabling environment that will induce sovereign wealth fund and private sector investment to invest in that demonstration project.
So once again, hearing that you've got to create that environment, but as you were saying, there are also the case studies, the projects that are happening. That is what helps with getting these things financed. I want to come to you, Mr. Kanavsky, on that, on projects in the Eurasian region. Are there any that you can point to to give us some real-world context about the work that you do with the SCO, about the ways that mechanisms at a multilateral level have been harmonized to ensure that projects get off the ground. Is there something you can point to, perhaps in one of the countries that you work across?
You see, I said that we are not enough structure, so we organize our own structure inside the Business Council and Secretary of Business Council. We have a platform in each country, few or one platform for each country. Of course, we are very interested to developing the project about the pure water, the safe energy, the green energy. We have in our pocket a lot of such programs. As such, we have opened it already. One very interesting center in St. Petersburg, and we have a cooperate always our platform. St. Petersburg, Tsingtao, Beijing, Astana, Almaty, Krasnoyarsk, Ufa, and because of our new partners established here, we want to make some platform here in Abu Dhabi, maybe Dubai as well. So we think this is a good mechanism to realize all the projects concerning the green energy as well.
And coming to you, Mr. Solheim, because you said you would come back to me on this about the effectiveness, the efficacy of multilateral organizations. Where do you think the international system is falling short at the moment? But to end on a positive note, what do you think can be done to ensure better collaboration across multilaterals?
I think there are three main weaknesses with the UN which need to be fixed. One is the UN is stuck in the paradigm of 1945. The UN was established by basically one man, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and then President of the United States, in 1945. It was absolutely brilliant at the time, but it's stuck in that paradigm. I mean, look, India, at that time, India was a colony under the United Kingdom. Now India is the third largest economy in the world, fastest growing large economy in the world, a huge civilizational state, and of course much, much, much more important to the world than the United Kingdom and France. India is not on the Security Council, nor is Africa there. Africa will soon be 2.5 billion people, and it's not on the Security Council, while the United Kingdom, sorry for you, because I know you're Brit, 60 million people is there. It's, of course, need to be fixed. Second, UN is stuck in absolutely bureaucratic, procedure-focused way of operating, not people-centered. Must be out there with the people, centering how we can help people. That's why many of these other institutions are more efficient, because they center more on the people. And lastly, sorry to say, the UN has the weakest and most incompetent leadership in the history of the institution. But that will be fixed next year, because then the United Nations will elect a new Secretary General. That will not be easy, because to find the person which Trump and Putin and everyone, Xi and Modi and everyone else can agree to will not be easy. But at least we can look for a person like, say, U Thant from Myanmar, who led the United Nations in very difficult, maybe as difficult circumstances in the 1960s, and excelled, or Kofi Annan from Ghana, who was also inspiring the entire world by his personality and his messages. So there is hope for the UN, but we need to fix these major problems, otherwise the UN will gradually slide into irrelevance.
I'm going to take that hope and wrap things up there. Hope for the UN, and hopefully hope for the rest of us, and hope for climate solutions going forward. Please give a round of applause to our esteemed panelists today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for this dynamic dialogue. So technology and innovation may be everyday buzzwords for many of us in this room. But in other parts of the world, the story can be quite different and far less heard. Yet it is precisely these technologies that are reshaping how we value, manage, and achieve our sustainability goals. To guide this discussion, please welcome our moderator, Ms. Remoka Shi, the Deputy Secretary General of Shanghai Climate Week. And ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our moderator and our esteemed panelists to the stage.
Your Highness, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our second panel, Technology and Innovation. My name is Ramoka Shi, and also serving as Implementation Lead for Middle East and Africa at SIEF, and also the founder of WeCarbon. It's my honor to guide today's discussion with all our distinguished panelists. As highlighted in the Climate Tech in Focus report just launched today, for the Global South, AI is not simply a technology, but a development infrastructure. Across developing countries, the challenge is no longer whether the innovation exists. It's how we can use technology, capital, and institutions come together to translate ambition into scalable and also sustainable outcomes. So today's discussion, we will focus on how climate tech innovations can actually scale responsibly across developing economies through de-risk mechanisms, regional hubs, and political reforms that overcome institutional barriers. More importantly, we will explore how Global South economies can move from being a recipient of solutions actually to the active contributor to innovation and long-term value creation. So it's our honor to have today's panelists with already shaping these paths in practice. So let's welcome again our Honorable Akpo, Nigerian Minister of State for Gas, and also the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. And also our second panelist, His Excellency Zhou Yiping, Founder Director of United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation. And last panelist is Nabil Al-Kawader, former CEO of Saudi Aramco Energy Ventures. So before our discussion, I would like to let our panelists to introduce yourself and your organization. Let's have Minister first.
All right. My name is Honorable Ekberikwe Eko, Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Gas, Minister of Petroleum Resources, Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you.
And fellow Excellency Zhou Yiping.
My name is Yiping Zhou, and I worked for Kofi Annan, the first Secretary, the Secretary General of UN, and then Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General, for altogether for 15 years. And I was the Director of the Office for South-South Cooperation, and I retired as the Envoy of the Secretary General on South-South Affairs. And now I am in a national think tank to China. The leadership on the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as on South-South collaboration with the Global South.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Zhou Yiping, and follow Mr. Nabil Al-Kawader.
Thank you. As you said, I worked with Aramco, and one of the positions I held was CEO of their Energy Ventures group. Following that, I joined the Ministry of Energy as a senior advisor to the Ministry of Energy. And over the last few years, I joined Worley as their Executive Director for Global Customer Engagement. And so my current position is with Worley Engineering Consultants.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kawader. And thank you all for introduction. And let's move to our today's dialogue. So to begin with, we're honored to have the Minister Akpo with us, a leading voice shaping Nigeria's energy access, industrial growth, energy transition. So you're right, Honorable Minister, how can Nigeria leverage CCUS, green hydrogen technologies, and venture capital from global players to actually transform the gas infrastructure?
Yeah, thank you very much. The moderator and the panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I bring you greetings from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And to commence with, I sincerely appreciate the organizers of this Sustainable Week program that we are having here. Nigeria is a gas nation to begin with. So there are few issues that we need to look at: the carbon capture, utilization, and storage, hydrogen development, and to progress with it, we need finances to actually actualize the dream of our great nation. I would like to say that today in Nigeria, before development of any asset, you have to take into consideration the environment, so that you need to design for carbon capture utilization, hydrogen development across the processes in terms of gas processing, power generation, and of course, industrial hubs. So to this end, we can see that there is need to safeguard the environment. And of course, it is all about finances. And so to take charge of the finances, we need to identify with Aramco Ventures to process funds, because policy alone cannot change the system. And when you identify yourself with Aramco Ventures, a professional body, it will bring about validation to our own technology and help in developing in a way that will safeguard the environment. We'll move there to talk about we all talk about energy transition, and then we mentioned hydrogen evolution. In our country, Nigeria, hydrogen is natural evolution in our gas process. And to this end, we leverage or integrate renewables with our gas infrastructure. And then by doing this, we are developing hybrid energy hubs that will help in the production of hydrogen for domestic use as well as for export, thereby saving the assets. So Nigeria, we are not choosing between gas development and climate ambition. We align the two to ensure that decarbonization is guaranteed, innovation is attained, and industrialization is equally attained. According to my president, we are looking at making Nigeria a gas economy come 2030. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister, for sharing. And it's really, really happy to see we already embedded the iron energy transition into our gas infrastructure. And also in this year's report, we see you emphasize a lot the strategic role of technology across upstream, midstream, downstream operations, and the importance of partnerships, especially along the supply chain. So next question will be, what do you think about the partnership with South-South cooperation platforms and climate tech innovators can actually help us accelerate the affordable solutions, for example, the solar microgrids or EV charging infrastructure?
Yeah, to this end, no nation in the evolving economy can succeed on its own. We need collaboration with other nations, especially the South-South corporations. When you look about the Middle East, the Asia, and other countries within that region who have tested this transition and have proven to be viable. So there is need for our country to identify with the South-South cooperation so as to access funds that are available at that level to develop our own gas sector in keeping with the climate change initiatives. And so it is very, very critical. And I want to say at this forum that Nigeria is open for investment in the gas sector. We have up to 210 trillion cubic feet of gas, and the president has set various policies and measures in place to encourage investors in the sector, and so that accessing funds from the South-South cooperation will be an easy thing. And of course, anybody that is investing in Nigeria will have to make returns on his own investment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your open call for the accessibility of the funds to Nigeria. We hope the firms from all over the world can build Nigeria better in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minister Ekpo, and to continue our focus on collaboration and shared implementation across developing economies. So let me welcome our His Excellency Zhou Yiping to join our conversation. As a leading advocate for South-South collaboration, your work has consistently emphasized turning partnership framework into the practical development outcomes. Therefore, I want to listen from your perspective. How can Global South Partnership can create the shared financing, joint R&D, and regional manufacture?
Well, thank you, moderator. First, I'd like to thank the organizer for inviting me to this august event, global event, and I also wanted to pay a special tribute to especially the Sustainability Week and the SIEF, the Sino-International Federation, Entrepreneurs Federation, as well as this whole summit. And I think the world is watching, and we have to deliver. Your question is absolutely right in focus, and I fully agree with what His Excellency the Minister from Nigeria talked about his own country. But I think the kind of commitment to climate and sustainability, the level of policy dedication, the initiatives, the private sector involvement, and the innovative financing solutions, all of that, I think it is not Nigeria alone. The whole African continent is all mobilized, okay, by itself. And each nation has its own commitment, but towards a common goal. So that, I think the minister spoke of the region, the kind of passion, commitment. So I think it's time for the world to respond. The questions about, from consumers of products or providers of materials to innovators for Africa, and I think I changed my mind, before from the day I came here and today. What I'm seeing here is that from day one, the solutions to energy challenges, we have solutions in solar, in water, in hydrogen, in all of those areas that we've seen, and solutions to addressing the global south education problems, health issues, food security, and clean water, and all the solutions and digital innovations, AI plus industrial solutions that I heard on day one. The prize winners as well as the finalists. And I'm sure there are more. There were more submitted to the Secretariat. So I am seeing Africa, beyond Africa, the whole global south countries are providers of new solutions rather than just the recipient or consumers of innovations or new technologies, new ideas. I think some of the most frontier thinking for the future is coming from the global south. And therefore the frontier technologies is also coming from the global south. So I do believe the first question is that how to the south, global south is no longer a recipient, passive recipient of solutions, technologies, but providers of solutions to the global community. So I think that I'm seeing that today. Before I came, I thought, okay, let me try to answer how to turn the global south from recipient consumer of industrial products to a provider. I said, we are already a provider. So I think the reality answered your question. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much for excellencies. And it's really very resonant that right now, Global South, it's already become innovation provider, not just the consumers. So our next question is, because in the year's report, you noted that sustainable impact depends not on technology alone, just like you mentioned before, but on people, institutions, and policy together, and that capacity building must be treated as a really, really strategic priority. So building on that perspective, how do you see the effective facilitation of regional innovation hubs, where African, South Asian and small island developing states can actually co-develop the locally adaptive solutions while enduring the R&D capacity?
Thank you so very much. To answer that question, I think following from what I just said, what I wanted to give you a list of figures, some figures about the Global South. First, the Global South is no longer geographic, it is no longer political, it is no longer ideological group of countries, but it is a group of countries that are mostly geographically located a bit sort of south of the equator. However, in the UN, when in 2004, when I was first appointed the director for the Office of South Cooperation by Kofi Annan, and I told him, I said, the Global South is actually not just geographically located off the equator, but it's measured by development. So the Global South, as well as South-South cooperation agenda, was no longer treated by the UN since 2004 as a development agenda and not a North-South political agenda. So that is one thing I want to clarify. Second, today we're talking about the emerging Global South. It's actually about the emerging development aspect of the international community. So I would not look at the country specific as a member of the Global South. However, any community that is below the UNDP development indicators, or any group or any individual, in my mind, in my world, they belong to the Global South. So that's the second I want to clarify. So third is that the number of the population, considered as the Global South population, consists of almost now 67% of the total population. And the economic contribution to the global economy is up to 80% now, 80%. And then also about 80% of the solar energy demand, 80% of the energy demand will come from the emerging economies in the future decade. However, on the other side, then the solar energy new output may likely come out from the Global South, and that is also calculated around 70%. And the water energy is also counted as 60-something% from the Global South. So you have the demand from the South and then the supplies of new energy from the Global South. So I think that's some of the basic figures. However, I do not believe that a country any particular country can address these common challenges. So for me, last night I was thinking about how to turn all of these capabilities in the Global South, the innovations, the energies in the Global South, and supported by the global community and the UN, and put some structure in place. So since we heard the stories on day one, and then we sort of walked through the exhibition halls and see all the technical solutions. How can we put all of these solutions together and make them, 1, available, 2, accessible, 3, affordable, and 4, sustainable? So last night I was thinking about it. So it's not mature, it's not full, but it's my personal idea. So I put it on a piece of paper, and I'm going just to say that my proposition for all of this and for the Global South and the international community to come together to deal with these challenges are to put in place, a structure. And I call it a green innovations value exchange mechanism. So in short, it's a GIVE. Green innovations value exchange GIVE. Mechanism is X. So if we put together in place a GIVE-X structure, it is AI-powered with an open source model with multiple modules. Let's say a solar module led by a solar conglomerate in the Global South. Let's say there's a hydro module, for the water, and we are going to have a water conference here. And I truly fully support what actually the, His High Excellency, the President of Seychelles just said earlier, that how can we turn the water into actually the wealth of the Global South. And I also heard of my former colleague, Eric Soran, talking about green is gold, and blue is also gold. And how can we turn that all into place? So I do propose this one, and I think we can start from here. Now, the structure, I made it very simple, and I hope you can probably remember this. I call it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 structure plus multiple modules. Okay, I'm going to go through very quickly. One is this called Green Innovations Value Exchange Mechanism for the Global South. Okay, I know many of you know DeepSeek, right? So I'm not talking about DeepSeek as such. However, the Global South should have its own DeepSeek. And that's for the green, for the innovations side. So that's one, I call it one. So I'm going to skip the other one. Two, meaning two frontiers. In design of the structure, we have to have a frontier thinking, which I said earlier, coming from the Global South as well as from the Global North, and frontier technologies. So that these two frontiers in designing of the structure. Three, I meaning that the structure should have three spaces, operable spaces. The first space is informative, where information is currently now all available. So informative space, everybody can use the space to get whatever information you have, or you want to post whatever information you have to be made available to the public. But you are liable for the information you put in the public because there is a blockchain technology following you. Three, okay. Two, it's an interactive space. So when you got into the system, it's interactive. You can try to find the person, the counterpart, the deals that you wanted to make. So it's an interactive space. That you need a special key, okay? And the third space is, I call it transactive. I know people in the business know what transaction means, okay? It's a transactional, it's a trading-based space where deals should be made. And all negotiations, all process should be recorded because it is blockchain technology.
Thank you so much for Excellency Zhou Yiping. Because the time is limited, so let's leave some time for other panelists. Thank you so much for sharing, especially the new mechanism, how we can convene all the... Yes, after the forum, let's just welcome the time to chat with Zhou Yiping, His Excellency Zhou Yiping, to more details about the mechanism. So because we talk a lot about how to enhance the affordability of sustainability, so investment is so important. So now we turn from the partnership to investment. This question is for Mr. Nabil Arkawader. What de-risking mechanism, especially like the regional innovation hubs, are most effective in scaling the climate tech globally?
I think the answer to that is really, the easiest answer is actually forums like this. And I can say that the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week Prize is a good example of creating a situation where you have around the world, the spreading of knowledge around the world and the support of small organizations around the world that are not necessarily in the wealthy countries. Because one of the problems we have now is that most of the innovation is happening where there is capital and where there is universities and knowledge. And creating organizations like, for example, the Sino-International Entrepreneurs Federation actually helps to spread the knowledge on one hand and the capital by highlighting young entrepreneurs around the world who might be coming up with new technologies that help in, say, reducing emissions, helping prevent climate change, etc. So I think the best answer to it is more forums and conferences like this to spread the knowledge and to support people around the world who are far away from the centers of wealth and power.
Thank you so much to share with our audience about how SIEF can actually contribute to this energy transition and the topic of sustainability from multinational collaboration to technology and innovation. So thank you so much, our distinguished panelists, and also thank you so much for our audience to join our important conversation. For the Global South, the future of climate tech lies in scalable, durable system that can be replicable across regions. So we look forward to continue our conversation, maybe forward and beyond ADSW. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all for your wonderful insights. Now, as our previous keynote speaker noted, water underpins every economy, yet it is still deeply underfinanced. So our next session, Infrastructure and Investment, will examine how governments, development banks, and investors can turn water security into a scalable, investable opportunity. This panel will be moderated by Ms. Sima Khan, the Senior Advisor of OIC Comstack, and she will be joined by leaders from the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the Africa Finance Corporation, the Institute of Sovereign Investor, and the Abu Dhabi Investment Group. Let's welcome our moderator and our panelists to the stage.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you to the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, to SIEF, to Masdar, and the people of the UAE for hosting us today. We were talking to each other right before coming out here. We appear to be the money panel. So we thought, how can we make this really interesting for everyone who's sitting in the audience today about where are we going to deploy our infrastructure capital, given the fact that today we know that our resources, like the ocean, like the environment, we heard about the trillions of dollars of opportunity earlier. How are these going to be used in the future? Well, it's infrastructure and infrastructure investment. And we thought that we would, instead of saying what each one of us does, we thought, let's have a policy discussion about the tensions that we must manage as sovereigns and the people who govern sovereigns, which are our heads of state, our ministers, and our people, our private sector as well. And we'll divide our discussion up between infrastructure banking, finance and debt development, sovereign wealth funds, and the policy investment outlook of the private sector. So I'd love to turn it over to AJ, who is from the Infrastructure Bank, about what are the tensions of policy between resources, between private capital inclusion, which is from bankability to investability, and execution, which we'll go to Mohammed for, and then the sovereign concerns around all of each. AJ, if you'd like to start us off.
Right. So thank you very much. Look at the infrastructure development. Traditionally, historically, this was being done by the governments in the sovereign sector. But what has happened during the last few decades is that the capacity of the governments are now shrinking. Their fiscal space is shrinking. So then we are talking about the lack of capital, because the public capital is not good enough to meet the infrastructure gap. Then how do we bridge that? And then that is why the role of private sector becomes very, very important. But the private capital will go only to those places where it is investable or bankable. So how do you make the projects or the infrastructure projects bankable or investable? That is why the role of policy becomes very, very important. We all recall that about 2 or 3 decades back, when we were transitioning to the renewable energy in the various parts of the world, at that time, and I still remember my earlier days when I used to work in the Indian government, and that time the solar energy was very costly, almost 30 cents a dollar, whereas the coal-based power was costing only 10 cents. So all the utilities companies, they were not able to buy, and therefore no investment was coming into this. And that is where the policy or the regulatory intervention came in, and that actually, kind of forced the utility companies to buy a certain percentage of power through this renewable energy. And that is what the roadmap was set. And that actually provided a boost or the motivation to the private capital to come in. And today what you see, the solar energy cost has come down to something like 3 cents or 4 cents per kilowatt hour, and whereas the coal stays still at 10 cents per kilowatt hour. So I think the similar thing can be done, particularly about the blue economy or the in terms of water that we are talking about. That if you want something to be investable, and audience today is here is the policymakers from the government, from the sovereign wealth fund. So I think the solution lies in this hall itself, in this meeting hall itself, in this panel, and then all the audience here, that we have people from the bank, we have the people from the various funds or the private capital, and also the policymaker. So therefore, the policy is very important.
So you manage attention of this policy between your board and also between your sovereign investors, because you're a regional. How do you balance those concerns? And then if you can move it to Mohammed, from your perspective as being one of the regions, as the Finance Corporation for Africa. AJ, first, how do you balance these policy concerns? And then Mohammed, if you can step in.
Yeah. So if you look at our bank, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, our banks are owned by 111 countries. This bank was formed in 2016, and therefore we have an audience or a kind of a collaboration with 111 countries. And so therefore, if we have to drive any policy agenda, then we have a certain amount of credibility that we can work with the government and we can share the best practices, that such and such policy has worked in this part of the world, why not try in the other part of the world? And that is why, so this bank, infrastructure bank, our board or the shareholders, they're not only the shareholder of the bank, but then this becomes a collaboration platform, knowledge sharing, and therefore that is what we are going to do. Now, once let us say that, and we have an instrument, policy-based lending, climate policy-based lending. And recently in Brazil, we invested through the climate policy-based lending to $1 billion in Brazil. Right. And we are repeating this into the various other parts of the world, because the policy is the starting point. That policy actually provides a kind of appropriate environment for the private capital to come in.
Right. So, Mohammed, when we were speaking earlier, we had talked about this balance of policy as being almost like, from a private sector perspective, the family office principle, right? Deploying and saying, this is where we would like to deploy and this is how, and it's then the job of the office itself to really balance and make the money. From what AJ was just saying about balancing policy, it's easier when you're in a family office and it's a singular principle. As AFC, you represent a significant portion of the global south, and as amazingly exponential the opportunity is for Africa, is also the constraints. Sure. How do you deal with that?
No, Seema, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me here. So just, quick background, Africa Finance Corporation, we were formed in 2007, and our key focus is one thing, just solving the infrastructure challenges on the continent by developing, financing, and de-risking infrastructure projects. And we're proud to say that since we started, we've invested in 36 African countries. We've deployed over $17 billion in about 160 projects. We are the first African DFI to be accredited by the Green Climate Fund, first African DFI to issue green bonds, and we developed the first carbon neutral special economic zone. I say this not to get a pat on the back, but I say this because ESG, or climate resilience, is not an ESG narrative for us. It is practice. and we take all of these into the idealization phases of executing projects. And just as a segue to what Ajay mentioned, you talk about policy and you talk about bankability. How does that get into building a resilient blue economy? How does that get into building resilient blue assets? How does that get into executing projects that will reduce carbon emissions, that would ensure sustainability and resilience on the continent? And that's where we really focus on in AFC. We're very, very focused on execution. And, given some examples, we'll talk about how we've worked on the Lobito Corridor, which is a project that starts from the port of Lobito in Angola to the border of DRC. And one of the things that we're able to do was to actually work on that project from inception phase. So you're baking in the idealization, the carbon reduction strategies, the renewable energy projects, the other bankable solutions around climate, to ensure that when you're actually raising the finance for that project, you're able to tap into different pockets of finance across the globe, but then you're also able to build resilient infrastructure and work through the entire process of getting the project from policy, bankability, capital, and project. And that's what we really focus on. There are multiple...
If I could stop you just for one moment. On this point, you had also mentioned that infrastructure is not just infrastructure. You actually spoke about intellectual infrastructure and the investments that you do to that in order to speed the execution.
Absolutely.
Could you touch on that, please?
No, definitely. I think what we've seen on the continent, and we see it in a lot of South-South countries, is that 90% of projects fall away during the development phase. That phase is where you need a lot of technical capacity. Capacity not just from a knowledge perspective in commercial, technical, legal, etc., but you also need financial capacity. That early risk capital of $2 million, $3 million, $5 million to do all the studies, to do the feasibility studies, environmental studies, technical studies, etc. AFC prides ourselves on that. We have a big project development team that really focuses on baking these transactions from inception phase. This enables you to speed up transactions. This enables you to bake in all the resilience and sustainability aspects into transactions right from the inception. And this enables you to attract the widest pools of capital across the globe. And that's something that we really focus on. And there's so many projects that I can talk about, but I don't have that much time.
But it's an important point, though, this aspect of infrastructure being beyond the bricks and mortar, and even being beyond the natural resources to including people as well. Yeah. And it's moving that from bankability, investability into execution, which moves us to Christian, who is actually on the sovereign side, because this is all the feed that goes into a sovereign wealth fund in order to be able to deploy across, not just from the perspective of driving the return. We all know that at the end of the day, money is what is important in order to be able to make something sustainable. But what governs that? Christian, if you could pick up on the points of this intersect, investability, but also on execution, which Mohammed raised.
Yeah. First of all, for perspective, and thanks for having us all here. It's a great event. There are about $60 trillion invested with the sovereign investors of the world, including their central banks, their sovereign wealth funds, and the sovereign-led pension fund system. Compare that number, and specifically the $15 trillion managed by sovereign wealth funds, to the $100 billion objective of this forum by 2030 to raise $100 billion. It's only 0.6% of what sovereign wealth funds actually manage. The challenge becomes in discussing the investment beliefs that leads to a sustainable investment policy, be clear on that at board level. That's the highest level of governance. At state level, this is what we want to do. Next, you'll drill it into an investment organization around the world. You have many prominent examples in this good city of well-run sovereign wealth funds. It's then a question of getting that defined within the investment framework. Per se, you wouldn't say that there's an asset class today that represents blue ocean type investments. So go and work on that premise and say, okay, we want to be committed to this. We want to lend our capital as investors towards this objective. And we're not doing that for fun as investors. We're there to make money on a risk-adjusted basis while maximizing the impact, which is an important discussion. So once you have all these good discussions, and the Institute is happy to help facilitate some of those, then you can basically start to allocate into assets that eventually goes into countries, that eventually goes into projects, and then the money drizzles down the system. So this is the important thing to keep in mind, that the money is there, we're building a bridge to where it's mostly needed around the world. In order to get good returns and have good risk and have a resilient structure and strong institutional resilience, you make sure that these assets are not stranded, are not mismanaged, are not in any way impacting your returns. So that's bringing us back to execution. You need strong focus on how to supervise without you delegate responsibility, but you know what is going on, and you have very strong people on the ground supervising that the objectives and the KPIs at project level are met. Because successful project, successful country exposure, successful asset class exposure, successful return, high risk adjusted return for the long-term and patient investors in this community that we look at. So build very strong focus, make it a top-down process, and then we can perhaps lend our focus towards meeting that 100 billion objective by 2030 is doable, clearly.
Christian, you mentioned aspects of the fact that the blue economy is it's a frontier in some cases, but AJ, you mentioned earlier about solar. Solar at one point in time was a frontier, and I think the difference of what I am hearing from the three of you is that at one point in time, we did not know the importance of these assets, just as humankind, but now we know, and it must be fed in because that aspect of regeneration to it is critical, but also the inclusion of the private sector within this, because each of you mentioned a private sector aspect of policy to ensure that it's an integrated delivery to drive the greatest impact. Well, Dr. Bashir, you've had a storied career in public sector and advising government at highest levels in Africa and in this country, and now you sit on the board of an investment group. What do you think from a private sector's point of view would you want to see from policy makers as well as policy executors from the financial sovereign space to be able to move you forward and to be able to get from bankability and investability?
Well, really, when you come to a huge infrastructure project that is affecting the lives of millions of people, hoping improving their lives, their economy, their education, their health, there are so many things that you have to do, and the environmental studies, tribal issues, but then legislation and policy is a big challenge many times, and sometimes some countries you come and you say, could you please manage this, and could you please change the law? They look at it as a sovereign issue. You don't tell us what to do. So you need to be very careful saying that and very tactful. But many times international investors find it challenging that the laws are not helping. Maybe the currency laws, the currency fluctuation, if I put my money here and then the rate changes, then what happens to me? So we need badly the help of not only international organizations that help us bridge few issues, but the government itself. There is another issue that probably sensitive, but corruption is another issue where people step in and cause problems. So there are many issues, and really without the help of the government itself
taking charge and rising to the occasion, and being ready to upgrade not only their structure sometimes, or some of their employees or their officials don't have enough experience or background dealing with certain issues, where they shouldn't be embarrassed to take courses or training or coaching to learn and to improve. It's a responsibility, but also maybe involving some governance in the country itself, but definitely legislation and policy and working with international organizations, very important. And NGOs, please, NGOs are badly needed.
So I'm going to bring this back full circle because I'm smiling because now that Dr. Bashir is in private sector, he's happy to say that, government needs to help mitigate political risk, execution risk, social risk, and we'll bring it back to government with AJ first. We've heard across the four of you, policy, it has to come from the top. And what are the pieces of this intersect and this tension? I was really intrigued that you mentioned solar, because solar, once upon a time, as I said, was the frontier, but now we're talking about blue. How do you bring this all together, this aspect of risk and the balancing? Because each country's risk is different. It's not the same, as is their governance or how they manage even their social risk. It's very dependent. And I'd like to move it down then from that perspective, just your last 1 or 2 minutes of managing that tension.
Yeah, so, you mentioned about the tension, and also Dr. Basir mentioned about particularly, the government.
Yes.
When you are talking to the government saying that, should you have this policy? And I'm reminded of my days when I used to work in Government of India. I was finance secretary. So if any private company came and said that these are the policy changes that you should make, we were very suspicious. And that is why the role of a multilateral development agency, international organization, who all are supposed to be neutral, and in fact, in AIIB, we are quite neutral because we are owned by 110 countries. So we are quite neutral. And therefore, in my experience, the multilateral development banks or international financial organizations, they actually have a far greater credibility. And therefore, they are able to work with the government and have the knowledge exchange and manage the tension. And because they have a larger credibility. For example, I mentioned about this $1 billion policy-based lending we give to Brazil. Brazil could have said that, who are you to advise us on this policy? But we work very, very closely with the governments at all levels, at the political level, at the execution level, and say that, look, these are the good things that have happened in the other parts of the world. Would you like to try this here? And because we have a credibility, they are comfortable in dealing with this. And that's how the entire, the tension gets managed. And that's how the risk gets managed, right, to some extent.
No, I think that with the world we live in today, risk and political risk is just part of doing business.
Yes.
With all the geopolitical tensions across the globe, which has been there historically, but obviously has been very fast-paced since COVID. Political risk, whether it's south-south, whether it's in the north, whether it's in developed countries or developing countries, it's just part of doing business. And I think for us at AFC, one of the benefits that we have as a multilateral, and AJ kind of touched upon it, is that as a multilateral finance institution, we have preferred creditor status in a lot of these member countries, in these countries in Africa. So what that means is that they grant us diplomatic immunities and privileges and preferential treatment when it comes to critical infrastructure projects. So being able to actually assess the risks from a political perspective on ground, that knowledge base always helps, but seeing those countries as partners and being able to actually work with them to de-risk these projects. And if you then need any additional credit enhancements, whether it's guarantees, political risk insurance from the likes of the World Bank or MEGA, you can add that in. But for us, we just see it as this is what it takes to do business. We need to build infrastructure. We have an infrastructure deficit. We wouldn't stop building, and we need to find a way to get things done. And that's it for us.
I think between the two of you, Christian, of hearing AJ and Mohammed speak about this, about the management of risk, but also really from a people perspective, like the values that people bring. How does this feed into your point on institutional resilience built across these different value chains?
Yeah. Institutions are strong only when they're resilient, because we test strong institutions when they are a crisis. So building on institutional resilience is a core level board activity, highest level activity. What does that mean? That means that you have strong process and procedures, you have strong risk management, you have a very capable set of talented people working with you in order to do whatever your mandate is. You do that well. The mandate then becomes to contribute to a greater purpose. In this situation, basically addressing climate change, 2/3 of the world is water, and it's a huge opportunity. So with my old investor hat, I would say, what an opportunity to look into. Go and explore the different areas. Get good people, run strong institutions, make sure they're resilient, stress what can go wrong, both with your assets and with your institutions. Two important part of what you do in order to successfully investing into this area.
Dr. Bashir, we're hearing from everybody, it seems, that we know enough to know that we know nothing. We also know enough to know that we should learn and build it around. What do you have to say? And then we'll, on these points, since you're the one who raised all the issues of risk that everybody had to answer.
Well, risk is really part of life. The fact that we are alive, we live with the risk of dying any minute. So, but that still doesn't stop us from moving on and planning and dreaming and so on. So mitigating risk is of course, something that we learn and we study, and we train how to handle and how to manage. Organizations need to do that. Extremely important is things that will help, of course, their people, the human resources, not only of the organization or the project itself, the infrastructure project that we're talking about, whichever, but of the government that we're dealing with, and of the multilateral, international, NGOs, different organizations that we're dealing with. So if every one or every unit has mitigated their risk, they manage themselves properly, I think we should be successful. But generally, some countries were able to do that and have done very well for themselves and for their people. Others are still struggling and still trying to find out what to do. And so this is what these panels are about, is to try and help take steps further, and don't be afraid to try.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been such an honor for me to sit with these four gentlemen, because I feel like I've had the opportunity to be at the beginning of a master class on taking in this blue forum, or this blue economy transition, from bankability to investability. But the lesson that I learned about managing all these tensions from listening to you is that really it comes down to people. Each of you have demonstrated how someone with both experience but an openness of mind is able to take these very large issues and make them manageable, because each of these points is how you can manage any piece of infrastructure dealing with the blue economy. And it's been an honor and a pleasure and a privilege. And thank you so much, all of you, for your time and allowing us this time with you today and to the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all very much for that insightful conversation. So now we've heard big visions and bold blueprints today. But in the end, every mission depends on people, on communities, youth, educators, and storytellers who bring ideas to life. So with that, we'll come to our final session themed Societal Engagement. We'll explore how communities, youth, education, and storytelling can reshape the social contract around water and sustainability. Now please welcome our moderator, Ms. Alice Ho, the Chief Youth Officer of the Global Alliance of Universities on Climate. And she will be joined by panelists from the Abu Dhabi Department of Energy, the WWF, Clean Rivers, and Westlake University. Let's welcome them all.
Good afternoon. Welcome. This is our last panel for the Blue Forum, and this panel convenes global leaders in youth empowerment, energy water integration, community-centered innovation, research excellence, conservation mobilization, and philanthropic convening to explore how storytelling, education, and local action can reshape the social contract around water stewardship. So right now, I would like to invite our panelists. So first here we have Deborah Box, the CEO from Clean Rivers. And next we have Elva Chan. She's the honorary trustee of Westlake University. And Marina Antonopoulos, our chief conservation officer from the Emirates Nature of WWF. So I have our panels here. It's a very interesting, it's a women's panel today. So here's to greet us. So here, let me start with Deborah. So Deborah is the CEO of Clean Rivers, and Clean Rivers is a backing project, STOP, in Indonesia. Is it STOP or STOP?
Stop.
Stop. In Indonesia, to build a circular waste system from nearly 2 million people, many getting formal waste collection for the first time. So what does local ownership actually look like on the ground? And how do you ensure communities are involved, that are leading, but not just participating?
Great question. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Maybe I'll share a little bit about Clean Rivers before I get started, because it's a local organization. It's a locally based and locally backed philanthropy that really works to fund, convene, and facilitate conversations around the intersection of waste and water. We're an affiliate of an entity in the UAE called Said Philanthropies, and we really seek to embody the UAE's long-standing commitment to global water stewardship. I'm sure you've heard a lot about the UAE's commitment to water the past few days, and really working to support the sustainable development of water for people and for the planet. And as we work at this intersection of waste and water, we're really looking at how do we drive systems change and amplify integrative solutions. So as you mentioned, we are quite a new organization, about 1.5 years old, and one of the first projects we funded is based in Indonesia, the world's largest archipelagic state with over 17,000 islands. And this project is in Banyuwangi, a city in East Java, situated right next to Bali. I think many of you know where that is. And we've been addressing waste pollution and land-based leakage because so much of this is interconnected. Waste leakage happens a lot on land. There's not proper systems to collect waste, and it ends up in our waterways, going from rivers all the way to the sea. This project that you mentioned, we really try to drive conversations between the local community as well as the local government to identify solutions that are right for the community. The community is at the center of so many challenges around climate change and climate action. And I think as a funder, we try to facilitate these conversations to identify the best solutions for those communities and solutions that work for them. The communities didn't ask for waste to end up in their waterways. They would like to have solutions in place, and we, as a funder, try to come in and provide circular economy solutions that both empower them to be actively engaged in the solutions impacting their communities.
Well, that's really amazing for the amount of people, and I actually think that enabling the local community is very important, because actually understanding what they need and then implementing is more important than actually, oh, there are some good solutions and just bring to any other country, any other city, but actually learning what's the needs is actually what is driving the future ahead. So thank you so much, Deborah. And next, I would have a question for Elva. So Elva is the honorary trustee of Westlake University. So how can leading research universities leverage science-driven solutions and emerging leaders to inform water governance policy, community action, and behavior change at city, at national scales?
Thank you. English no good. Sorry. Thank you. To improve water governance, the first step is closing the information gap. When a city has real-time data, transparency becomes the best tool to change behavior. As a founder board member of Westlake University, I'm proud that our labs to leading this change. We are using AI to detect water quality, a system already used by international water companies. Our labs have mapped how these pollutants travel from land to river, helping to cut microplastic and cut emissions and protect water. We upcycle it. Our experts turn wastewater into clean energy and even valuable amino acids by supporting these projects. Every drop of water is treated as a precious and sustainable resource.
Yeah, thank you, Alva. As also from a university working administrative, I understand that how research and implementation of such a scientific way to upscaling it is very important. And I've learned a lot from hearing from Alva from Westlake University on how these water every single drop of water are actually traced and being taken care of by the current AI generative technologies. So I think this is something that could be implemented into more and more countries, especially with places with rivers. So then I would like to get to our NGO representative from Marina. So water stewardship requires a holistic approach, policies coupled with societal engagement across generations and sectors. So how can we build water governance and scalable models that genuinely mobilize people from local communities in the UAE and to youth leaders, but also to the private sector? So I think today we're really connecting between NGOs, private sectors, and governments and universities.
Absolutely, and thank you for your question. I would say definitely we need that holistic approach, that systems thinking, but also we need that whole of society approach. On the policy level that you mentioned a few years ago at COP28 that was hosted here in the UAE, we saw that historical political decision that really brought that systems thinking, the nexus between climate, nature, water, and food systems. But beyond policies, we definitely need to double down our efforts on that bottom-up approach and engage with local communities, as Deborah mentioned earlier, with academia, with private sector, but also with the broader public. Let me just give you some insights, if you allow me, from the work we have been doing here on the ground, and maybe just use this time to introduce the organization I'm working with. So I work with Emirates Nature in association with WWF. We are an environmental NGO based here in the UAE for 25 years, and we are associated with the WWF network that is present in 100 countries. So obviously throughout our 25-year journey, we have really tried to engage with communities, and I'll tell you some examples. We have worked to safeguard freshwater and coastal ecosystems here in the UAE. We've done that by conducting science, but also by capturing traditional knowledge that communities have, capturing the cultural practices, and really integrating those practices into management measures for those landscapes. But we also worked with farming communities and local communities on the ground on a one-to-one. So we piloted solutions when it comes to water irrigation needs, and we know how important that is for our region. And we found out that with a number of deployment of integrated water solutions, we were able to save from 30, and more recently we achieved a 70% reduction of water irrigation needs for our local farmers, which is critical if we are to build resilience for our local food production. The third point that I'd like to make is beyond those governance models for management, for protection, and partnerships, we also have platforms that really engages the public, but also private sector. So on the public side of things, we do really want to mobilize the whole of society of the UAE. So we have mobilized 10,000 volunteers with really boots on the ground to help us on our journey with the local communities and really bring solutions to the ground. But also you mentioned private sector, and I'll borrow from the work we're doing on climate and decarbonization. We have an alliance for climate action with a number of private sector entities, universities, government entities as well. And our objective is to really brainstorm, build our capacity, and looking at solutions collectively in terms of how do we move the needle for decarbonization. And even though it's not necessarily clearly related to water stewardship, what I would like to say is that collective action can really help us move the needle faster as well.
Yes, absolutely. Like, especially, I also work in an alliance, and I really see that the importance of the alliance, how we bridge the people together. We bring in the different sector or different group. For me, it's different universities. But actually, when we have university students and university professors that work together from all the different regions globally, we see the difference between the global north and global south, and we see the needs of bridging the gaps and also having the knowledge information gap to learn from each other and to actually bring people together. So given that, I would now get back to our private sector, get back to Deborah, that there, and back to the water stewardship, that there are many dimensions to water stewardship, and one of which is protecting freshwater environments and responsible for water security, food security, and community resilience and development. So when Clear River enters a new context of a project, how do you connect conservation goals with local communities as the priorities?
Thanks for the question, and I love how tied that in with Marina, what you were saying in regards to how you're looking at all the different components and the role that community can play. And we like to do the same thing as a foundation. When we enter a community, as you mentioned earlier, we don't come with prescribed solutions, although there are best practices for waste management, for preventing leakage into waterways, for collecting that pollution in our waterways. But really, as we look at all the different dimensions of conservation and sustainability, community is always at the center of that. Communities historically have settled along waterways and really rely on those waterways for their livelihoods as well as so many other components of their life. And as Clean Rivers, we really like to facilitate conversations and alignment between these different sectors, whether it's with the government, private sector, or communities, because it really is cross-cutting. Everyone is relying on water within a community. And going back to that word bridge, we like to bridge and translate priorities across silos. Everyone is at risk when water is at risk, because so many sectors, communities as well, are dependent on water. For example, in some of the projects or communities we're working in Southeast Asia, we've seen situations where with huge amounts of accumulated pollution in urban rivers, it creates a lot of secondary threats. From flooding, we saw this in the Philippines this year. The amount of waste in the waterways impacted flooding after huge rains, as well as also leading to waterborne illnesses within the community, contamination in water, and even impacting children's safety as they often play and live along those waterways. And when we look at waste in water, there's often many different government departments involved. That could be for flood control, for waste management, for infrastructure. When the waste is in water, often there's no one responsible, but these interconnected challenges are all linked. And so it's really important to rely on local knowledge, local practices, seeing communities' behaviors and why decisions are made around dumping waste into waterways and how we can come in as a donor to really empower vulnerable communities who might not have a lot of options to addressing their waste challenge, and provide those options, provide those alternatives, whether it's through infrastructure, supporting systems that are in place, and as well as looking at behavior change and how we can encourage and motivate communities to understand the interlinkages with climate challenges as well as their own wellness and sustainability. So our role as a donor really, again, we're facilitating these conversations and supporting communities by creating an enabling environment for impact. I think often when we talk about sustainable development, it does mean that there's trade-offs. We're looking at trade-offs between economic growth, social well-being, environmental protection, and we're looking for solutions where conservation can create economic opportunity and empowerment within the community and not just restriction. And I hope that's how we move forward as a philanthropic organization.
Well, that's something that we all need to learn from, and especially when you mention about behaviors, I think learning about what are behaviors and what are the bad behaviors we are, and to actually try to change our behaviors is what is very critical for climate and for sustainability. So through the theory of behaviors, I would then like to turn to Elva, that with Westlake's network and innovation focus, how can universities catalyze cross-sector partnership among governments, NGO, private sectors, multi-stakeholders to co-develop water solutions, ensuring inclusive engagements, especially what type of behaviors are we changing within the university?
Okay, thank you. To create a real change, we need to not only a plan, but also technology trust. Our company high value real resource. In fact, diamond canting needs a lot of water. To address this issue, we have used a closed loop system to recycle most of our water. However, our industry needs not only technology, but also credibility information. I hope this is a system that can be fully trusted by every partner, from the government to private sector. We co-developed a traceability system with Microsoft using blockchain and AI to track each diamond from mining to government compliance every step of counting and to customer without harming the environment. It's shifted from a simple diamond business to full life cycle responsibility. This means we care about the diamond from the moment it leaves the earth until it becomes a family asset for the customer. We're promoting a circular economy, treating water as a recyclable asset. Then, waste and consumption will treating a traceability. Value creating system help economic growth and environment protection develop all together, while ensuring natural most precious gift from protecting simple drop of water to saving global rare diamond asset to keep them pure, traceability, and timeless. This is how we protect the future. This is our shareholder mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alva. And well, as we learn a lot about how we are preserving and saving water, I would like to have a final question for Marina, that as water and oceans are increasingly become a priority for both philanthropy and investors, how do we build projects that can attract blended finance from philanthropy to private capital while integrating measurable solutions for nature and community resilience?
Thank you for that question. For us as an NGO, the topic of blended finance is actually relatively new. Throughout this small glimpse that we have essentially experienced so far, I would like to focus on two factors. One is scalability, the second one is intent. Scalability, I'll explain a little bit more. If we unzoom from the UAE and we go to Asia Pacific region, we know that this region is actually one of the most vulnerable places in the world when it comes to climate change. So what we have started implementing on the ground, not only in the UAE, but as well with other offices across the region, is to develop nature-based solutions that build resilience of local communities on the ground. We launched this program last year, and the idea is to leverage on the grant that the UAE Aid has kindly offered us as an anchor donor to this program. And the idea is to look at how do we create proof of concept for nature-based solutions? How do we develop a framework that really offers us the opportunity to replicate, scale up those solutions faster so they can attract different types of capital once they mature? The second point on intent is about designing nature-based solutions or this type of projects with the intention to bring that ROI early on in the process. And here what I'd like to point out is that it doesn't have to be always generated, this type of projects, from NGOs. Private sector has a lot to actually offer here. There is a lot of private sector entities that they are facing pain points in the delivery, in their operations related to water. Water scarcity, water pollution, physical climate change risks, and they're actively working in translating those challenges into opportunities and models that can have cost-effective solutions and bring that ROI back. So I believe that these type of projects can potentially bring a business model faster, attract more traditional investors, and these are the type of partnerships as NGOs as well we're kind of seeking to also mobilize on the ground.
Thank you, Marina. I'm sure this is something that UAE is working on and will be building a lot better on it. And now our panel is ending, and I would like to thank all the guests today to attend the Blue Forum, and also to all our panelists who have been speaking amazingly about their own journey in life. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for being part of this first and all-female panel for today's Blue Forum. And with that, we're making a beautiful closure. And so this will conclude the formal program of the Blue Forum. Thank you for your participation, your insights, and your commitment to building a more resilient and sustainable future. Now we warmly welcome our speakers and VIP guests to join the reception hosted by the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and SIEF to celebrate AIIB's 10th anniversary. Now thank you once again and enjoy the rest of the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. Have a wonderful day.